Sexual orientations, where does that come from? Do we choose that before we come here?
Every time, every time, every time, every time, every time.
Interesting.
Because sometimes as teachers you say, I'm not going to be controlled by a society that is misguided in their believing that controlling is the answer. I'm going to be uncontrollable in this specific way.
So how does Source feel about bisexuality?
We want to get to the basis of the question. Let's get to the basis of the premise, not the sexuality that you think. That's not the premise. The basis of this question, the important premise of this question is, do you think that you are a puppet on a string and that you're here just to figure out what Source wants you to do? That Source has got it all figured out, that Source is finished with creation, and now you're here being tested to see if you can get in. It's not like that at all. You're here exploring and evolving and discovering and deciding, and Source is supporting and flowing. So Source doesn't have a contrary opinion about what you're choosing. The contrary opinion that you feel when you choose it from Source is when you get contrary of your own desire. You're the one that's sifting and sorting and launching the rockets. You're the one that's causing the expanding. You're the leading edge out here, you see. But your mind doesn't want to go quite there, does it? Your mind wants to believe that there are rights and wrongs that you must follow, that there are things that you must do. And that's because so many have come before who needed to control your behavior. And so they said, if you really want to thrive and be part of our club, and in the early days, the economic and the religious clubs were almost the same club. If you want to be part of this club, then you must do these things, and you must not do these things. And so you said, I really want to be part of this thriving club. And so I will not do those things, and I will do these things. And then as you lived a little bit of life and you noticed, hey, wait a minute. I'm not doing those things, and I am doing these things, and I'm not so much thriving. And that person over there is doing the things that they're not supposed to do, and not doing the things that they're supposed to do, and look at them thriving. And then they said, oh, well, you can't tell by what's going on in this life. It's in the afterlife that you will discover whether you got it right or not. So now you are left, you're taking somebody else's word for it. You are completely setting aside your own guidance system with your own inner being there, guiding you, giving you impulses, helping you to find your way to the things that your life has called through you, you see. You're not puppets on a string. And so we really like it when you know that the opinion that Source has for you is always about your thriving, always about your happiness, always about your self-discovery of your path of least resistance, and never, ever, 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 ever will be. How you put God and hate or God and vengeance in the same sentence is really a sort of screwy thing, don't you think? You can't have it both ways. What is what man calls God? Well, what we are calling that Source energy is the culmination of all that you have discovered that has been of benefit to you and to mankind. In other words, there is this vibrational reality, but it's not these petty things that you use to squabble and push against one another about. You are pure positive energy. You are liquid love. You've come to uplift. You've come to be empowered. You've come to take the energy that creates worlds and flow it through. And when you are in sync with all that you are, then you feel that and you know that. And when you push against anyone, you've disconnected yourself from your source. And that's why so many hateful people need to gather together in groups, because they don't have the resource of their own alignment. So they're looking at it from others, you see. They're wanting the opinion or the consensus of others to support them in their pushing against. And we are not wanting to push against those who are pushing against. In other words, everyone's having the experience, and all are contributing, all are adding to the whole. Because when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. And the collective consciousness, this collective consciousness vortex, is a sight to behold. What you all have created is a magnificent world that it's time for you to cash your chips in on. It's time for you to line up with what you've put there. It's time for you to be the manifestors, the realizers, the actualizers, the livers of the magnificent life that you have created together. Don't try too hard to figure out why everybody else or mass consciousness is doing anything. Just take the platform of what you're observing and from it choose what you prefer. And as best as you can, give your undivided attention to your preferences and watch the empowerment that flows through you. And in time, you will find yourself really not interested in exploring those subjects that are so insignificant in nature. And what we mean by that is insignificant in that they're much more step one than they are step three. There's much more about what's wrong than there is about what's wanted. And soon your teeter-totter will tip on the fulcrum and you will find yourself feeling impassioned with big thoughts, with big things, with big power. And the pettiness of caring about what anybody else is or isn't doing with it will just leave you. We've been saying to you, just mind your own business. Mind your own business. And your own business is the business between where you are vibrationally on a subject and what's in your vortex. That's your business. And when you start minding your own business, the empowerment comes. But even more than that, or as well as that, is the joy of being here, the joy of being able to be the interpreter of all of this creative energy. Think about it. Your Earth is spinning in perfect proximity with other planets. Do you think that's accidental, or do you think that's consciousness focused? And when you begin to focus upon the things that are important to you in this time-space reality, and we want to say to you, these questions that you are asking are important questions. We're not trying to head you off from any of these questions. These social issues, these things that matter to you, these are important questions. It's why you light it up. It's why we want to have this conversation. We just want you to line up with what's in your vortex about them more rather than pushing against what's in mankind about them more. Stop facing reality and start going more with the flow, with what you can feel is right. And that's why some people come with an orientation that is a different sexual orientation than others, and they cannot deny it. Isn't it nice that you came with something undeniable, something that you cannot deny, even though almost everybody would like to line you up and get you to deny it in some way? Not anymore. But it wasn't long ago that most people wanted to line up and get somebody to change their mind about something that they were not ever going to change their mind about. Well, we want you to feel that way about everything that is important to you. Don't let the naysayers influence your vibration. Don't let those who don't know anything about what's in your vortex or who you are or about how you flow or about the process that you work or about how you feel, about who you were, about why you're here, about what extension of source energy you are. Don't let those who don't know who you are try to dictate to you how you should feel or how you should be or how you should live. You all came to live together and you are not all the same. Have you noticed? And don't you think that if it were important that you be the same, that you would be? And don't you think that it is noteworthy that you're not the same? Don't you think that diversity is your greatest power? The differences in you is the most important factor of this time-space reality, because out of those differences are born new ideas, while out of sameness, nothing new is born, you see.